Okay, hitting live. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We're starting now. Actually, wait, I need to do a test on my mic quick. Testing 1, 2, 3. That seems really quiet. Why? Testing 1, 2, 3.
All right, I'm now recording.
Oh, I'm now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 317 for June 23rd, 2023. Hey everyone, Dean and Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. This week we'll be hitting up the latest on Windows 11. Of course, there were some insider builds that came out this week. We'll talk about what's new with those. What we know about quote unquote Windows 12, because officially it's not called Windows 12, and we don't absolutely know for sure that they're going to call it Windows 12, although we're pretty confident I think they're going to call it Windows 12. The Pixel experience on Surface Duo. What? So apparently, as Microsoft drops support, well, no, unofficially drops support for the Duo and Duo 2, someone's gone ahead and basically ported the Android 13 experience over to Duo. And Shane Craig, I know, on his YouTube channel, actually did a video showing how it's done and how it runs. And it's actually not so bad. It actually runs pretty well. It does miss some Microsoft optimizations, obviously, but yeah, more of a DIY version. We'll talk about that. Surface Fall expectations. So Zach is going to tell us what he's hearing for the latest on what we can expect. I assume in the October timeframe. That's usually when Microsoft announces these things. I got the ROG Ally by Asus, which was an impulse buy, and it's very expensive. And I don't know how I'm going to pay it off, but we'll figure that one out down the road, apparently. And we'll go through so I'll share my experiences with it, what I like and don't like about it. And I think we have a couple reviews too, as well as thing of the week. Zach, how you doing on this fine Friday?
I am not too bad. How is yourself?
Yeah, hanging in there. Just a busy day, just jumping between meetings. And then, as I was telling Zach, I usually take the DOG for WALK at this point. But then my favorite bands, well, I have a couple favorite bands. One's Bad Religion, the other one's The Levelers. Pink Floyd is up there. Saw them in concert, believe it or not. That's how old I am. And the other one is Godspeed You Black Emperor. And if you've never listened to them, it's quite the experience. It's it's considered post rock, which is how do I explain it? It's long form music. So sometimes they have songs that go on for like 17 minutes.
Oh, wow.
There's no singing. There's no vocalists in the band. They tend to have two bass players, three guitar players, a drummer, violin player, sometimes a cello player, and a xylophone player. And they do music that's kind of structured more similar to classical music. That is, they have separate movements within the songs themselves. And they're kind of like the band Explosions in the Sky, who came after. But Godspeed is sort of considered to be one of the founding bands of post rock. And so there are these songs that start off very slow and then they build to almost a chaotic crescendo. And it's the only music that like really like if you talk to Godspeed fans, like we all agree that like it's some of the most emotional music you can listen to, which is really an accomplishment when you can just evoke emotions, whether it's happiness, hope, despair, and all this kind of stuff via just music. And so the songs are kind of really long, but they have this like kind of repetition to them, and it almost gets you sort of like in a zen-like state. If you were to listen to it, you can't like skip. parts and tracks and all this kind of stuff. You need to put on headphones, ideally lay down in bed at night with the lights off and just like take it in. It's good if you're going to be on an airplane too. I actually listen to them every night at the gym, which is hilarious because a lot of people at the gym are like, I listen to like Slayer. It's like the most aggressive music. I listen to music that basically puts me almost in a trance state. But yeah, Godspeed You Black Emperor. They've been around for a long time. But the reason I bring them up, I saw them last year and it was an amazing concert. And I've seen them before. But they just announced that they're playing in my town here in Worcester. Like, so I had to go buy tickets immediately so I can get good seats and everything. I once saw them at St. Patrick's Cathedral, New York City. They rented out the whole church and played in there, which was an amazing experience. Yeah. Anyway, if you get to see them in concert, it's quite the experience. I took my best friend last time. He's going with me this time too. He never even heard them, and he just went in there cold, and he was just like, "What? Like the hell was that?" Because it's such a wild experience. But yeah, so that's my rant on Godspeed. Anyway, but that's not what anyone's here for. But I want to promote them because they're a good band. But I don't want them to get too popular because then like it's just like everything else, right? It's just like it's an underground kind of thing that the cool people know about. But if they got popular, like it would just start to suck then, right? Anyway, but you guys are cool, so you can go check them out. Let's start with the latest on Windows 11. So there were a few insider builds this week, beta and dev channel, nothing for Canary. But what were in those channels that we should be somewhat excited about? And wasn't there something about File Explorer changes coming and now not coming and all that kind of stuff?
So yeah, let's dive into all of that. We'll start with the dev channel build 23486. Couple of notable things in here. First of all, improvements to saving and enrolling passkeys within Windows. Obviously, Microsoft Edge can do this already, but it looks like they're adding a similar thing to Windows itself. So you'll be able to go into the settings app, for example, go into account and passkeys, and you'll be able to see all of your saved passwords, which I'm assuming are syncing with Edge and the Microsoft Authenticator app, because already if you're using Edge, it's already saving passwords and usernames for you, right? And if you use the Microsoft Authenticator on your phone, that app pulls those saved passwords and actually allows you to use them as an autofill authorization service on Android. I don't know if it does on iOS, but it does on Android for sure. So you can just tap into apps and log in using your Microsoft passwords, using the Authenticator app. But Windows hasn't been able to do that. Yes, you can use Edge to log into browsers, but if you will try to log into apps, for example, there was no built-in system for that. However, it looks like they're now finally adding one to Windows, and they say Microsoft believes that the future is passwordless. We're improving the passkey experience for Windows users. They can now go into any app or website that supports passkeys to create a sign-in using passkeys with the Windows Hello native experience. Once a passkey is created, users can use Windows Hello to sign in. In addition, users can use their phone to complete the application logon process as well. So that's very nice. Yeah, I've noticed some websites like eBay, for example, already support Windows Hello. Like sometimes you'll look into eBay, excuse me, and you get prompted, would you like to sign in with your face next time? And that's really nice. But eBay's the only website I've come across that does that. All the other sites I use do not offer face unlock using Windows Hello. Sure. So hopefully this encourages more apps and services to support that in the future.
Well, passkey itself is supposed to be kind of like this universal thing that Google and Apple all agree upon as a standard. So the interface by which it's authenticated shouldn't be dependent upon websites choosing that method per se. So it should be a much more universal accepted thing that Apple users can then use the Face ID to scan in, and then Windows users can use fingerprint or Windows Hello. So I'm actually pretty excited about that because Lord, I hate passwords. I will say Edge has made it a lot easier, with its password thingy, but it still can be annoying at a lot of times. So it's good.
So the other notable things, a couple in this build, the Dev Home app, which was announced at build, is now built into the system as an app that's pre-installed. So you would have to go into the Microsoft Store and download it. That's likely because it will ship as part of the 23H2 release. Currently, right now, it's available in preview. You can, outside of the program, you can go into, outside of the Insider program, that is, you can go to the Microsoft Store and download this app and try it out. But starting with 23H2, it will be baked into the OS. And then lastly, they've added 3 new effects to the dynamic lighting feature in the settings app. So there's now a new effect called Wave, Wheel, and Gradient. I've not had a chance to try these out yet. I don't actually have... Actually, I do have one, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to work with this thing. I don't know. I guess we'll see. I have this Keychron K2 here, which does support RGB. But yeah, I'll have to plug it in and give it a try for next week.
It should work, yeah.
Yeah, I hope it works. So that's the dev channel stuff. The base channel also got a build 22631.1906, and this is really we've talked about the base channel before. This is a more complete version of the next release of Windows, or the next feature update for Windows 11. So most of this is just stuff that's been backported from the dev channel. Things like the ability to hide the date and time in the system tray. See the more up-to-date modern Wi-Fi flyout on the lock screen, the updated Windows security prompt, which is now using a WinUI design rather than Windows Vista's design, improvements to settings and all the other good stuff. Oh yeah, and an updated settings page for the Surface Dial, which I still think is hilarious that they are supporting that still, but that's cool nonetheless. But yeah, we're slowly but surely seeing the next Windows 11 feature update, which we believe to be the 23H2 release coming in September or October. We expect that is being shaped now. And so over the next couple of months, over the summer, essentially, you will see most of what's in dev channel currently be backported to beta and shaped into the next version upgrade for Windows 11. And that will include, to my knowledge, Windows Copilot, dynamic lighting, and all the other stuff that isn't currently in beta channel yet, but will be hopefully in the next handful of weeks. Microsoft did say that they were going to start rolling out the Windows Copilot stuff in preview in June. We are now on June 23rd. They have one more week before they miss that deadline. So we're assuming it will be here in next week's Insider Builds, unless they are unable to meet that deadline, which I would be very surprised, because it's going to be a web wrapper, right? To just Bing chat. Like, what was taking so long, Microsoft? Come on. But yes, so that is, to my knowledge, all of the insider news this week. I guess one last thing I do want to briefly bring up, because this has been a point of confusion for me and others. But Microsoft released build 22621.1926 to the release preview channel, and the changelog for this build is everything in Moment 3, which is curious because we've discussed in this podcast a bunch of times now. The Moment 3 update was supposed to roll out as part of the June security patch. And to my knowledge, it did. I was talking to our news editor earlier, Sean Endicott, because we were talking, a few sites had run that the update hadn't actually been pushed out to everybody yet, and it was coming in July, which didn't line up with what Microsoft said. They said it was available early on May 24th, and it would roll out on June 13th to everybody. But then a few sites were running stories earlier this week saying, oh, if you haven't got it yet, it's because it's not rolling out to everybody until July. And I thought that's absolutely not what Microsoft said. So I asked our news editor, who I know isn't in any insider programs. We double checked; he's not in any insider rings. He hasn't got the toggle in settings to get updates sooner. And I said to him, "Hey, can you just go and check a couple of features to see if they're there? Things like system seconds in the system tray." And yep, he can see them. So he's running Moment 3, and he didn't request to get it early. He just installed the June patch Tuesday, and Moment 3 activated for him. So I don't know if this means that Moment 3 is rolling out in waves, and then it will be rolled out to everybody by July's patch Tuesday, or if it is rolling out, or if it did come to everybody in June and those sites are wrong. I just don't know. But the fact that the release preview got this build with all the changes for Moment 3 after Moment 3 was generally available doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure. I don't know what happened there, or how Microsoft is rolling this thing out, because they weren't clear. Microsoft were not clear. All they said is May 24, you can manually download it and install it through Windows Update. June 13, it'll be out for everybody on Patch Tuesday. And then that was the end of the story. I thought it was out. I thought we were done with Moment 3. But apparently some people, or some websites are reporting that some people still don't have it. In which case, if you don't have it, I guess you'll get it by July's Patch Tuesday, which is going to be on July 11th. So there we are.
That's it.
That's it, yes.
All right. Always confusing with those updates. Yeah, I'm not even sure which ones I have on what computer at this point, if they all got it. Let's see this week if my widgets work.
Mine are working.
So far, they are not working. So, nope. They're just broken on this computer. That's awesome.
Wow.
Cool beans. All right, let's go on to, and of course, as I mentioned, because I didn't get to take the Abby out, she is now here requesting me let her outside, but she's going to have to now wait. Anyway, let's move on to Windows 12. So not a lot new per se, though you did put together an article sort of putting everything together in terms of what we do know about what we think is Windows 12. which is expected to release next fall 2024. We've always talked about how next year is going to be kind of a big year, both for Intel and Qualcomm processors, probably AMD as well, AI, and how Windows 12 is going to be kind of a quote unquote AI operating system, more so than what we're talking with Copilot and what that's going to be. So why don't you give us a rundown of sort of if there's anything new there that we haven't talked about, or sort of what we do know about this next version of Windows?
Yeah, I'm not too sure if there's anything particularly new here that we haven't mentioned on the podcast before, at least, but certainly some new stuff that I hadn't mentioned in writing before, things like some of the AI stuff and whatnot. But yeah, this article really, as you mentioned, is just a sort of combination of all the stuff we've been hearing so far, a one-stop shop, which we will continue to update as new Windows 11 information comes out. So it will most likely be up to date with all the latest stuff as things get leaked or revealed. So the first thing you mentioned there about it being called Windows 12, we're just calling it Windows 12 for simplicity's sake. Chronologically, it makes sense to call the Windows V next Windows 12 because the previous or the current one, Windows 11, the one before that, Windows 10. But there's no guarantee they'll call it Windows 12. For all we know, they might decide to call it Windows 11.1, or they could call it Windows Aurora, or something entirely abstract
Hopefully,
or different.
Oh, Aurora would still be. That is just, of course, a badass name. They should call it that. But I think they'd probably stick to versioning.
I would hope so.
And I hope they don't do a 0.1. That's kind of
right, yeah.
Especially by default line.
Especially if you're planning to do these major releases every 3 years, why wouldn't you take it as an opportunity to make it a new product? Why would you? I don't know why you wouldn't.
That said, we can already tell you. I can already guess if they do a Windows 12. We know they'll do a Windows 14 and not a Windows 13.
You think they'll skip Windows 13?
I think they would. Buildings here in the U.S., a lot of them don't have a 13th floor.
Yeah, but Mac OS did 13. And iOS 13.
Yeah, but they don't really. 13. Did they call it Mac OS 13 though? They call it all those stupid names, right?
I guess okay, but Android 13 and iOS 13 was still a thing.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see.
Yeah, they didn't skip.
Well, we don't need to worry about that for many more years. The Windows 13 isn't expected until 2027, so we'll start talking about that closer to the time. But yes, so as we know, as we've just discussed a bunch of times now, there is a new engineering cycle for Windows, which is why we are in strong belief that Windows air quotes 12 will be out at the end of next year, because Microsoft is back to delivering major versions of the Windows platform every 3 years. The last major version was technically Nickel, which was in 2022, but Microsoft isn't counting that one. They're actually counting it from Cobalt, which was 2021, which is the initial build of Windows 11. So Windows 11 came out in 2021. 3 years later, 2024, the next version of Windows is expected in 2024. It's codenamed Hudson Valley, which is, to my knowledge, I believe it's codenamed Hudson Valley. The thing is, these days, codenames mean everything and nothing at Microsoft. There's so many different codenames for a single project these days. Sometimes there are codenames for specific parts of a project. Other times there's a blanket codename for the whole thing. You know, we've referred to it as Next Valley. Hudson Valley is another one. I'm sure there are more valleys and other names for it to come. But for now, we'll call it Hudson Valley because that's the one I've seen in documentation describing Windows 2024. And yes, it is supposed to feature a whole bunch of AI stuff. So this is something Microsoft was already sort of teased, I think. Panos Panay said on stage at CES, I think on AMD's conference, that the next generation of Windows will be heavily AI driven. And I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. You know, we've seen Microsoft begin this investment with NPUs on Windows 11. Right now, it's basic functionality, you know, enhancements to microphone and webcams. But that's going to keep growing. You know, that's not where that stops. NPUs and GPUs as well. It's not just NPUs. I believe GPUs can also do AI stuff. We've already seen, you know, NVIDIA broadcast sort of enhancing AI. In fact, this HP I'm using, NV34, it has the same sort of audio controls using the Bang & Olufsen audio control panel, which I believe is Samsung. I think HP maybe customized this because it does things like not background blur, microphone background isolation and stuff. So that's kind of cool. And we're expecting to see more of that coming with Windows 12. But it will be more productivity focused with Windows 12, to my knowledge. I've heard that there's plans to allow Windows to sort of analyze content on display and provide contextual prompts to jumpstart projects or apps. based on information that's currently being viewed. So, for example, you could be in WhatsApp, for example, or in an email thread, and there's a block of text saying, "Hey, we're organizing a wedding party. We're doing this theme here. We need baking cakes and this, that, and the other." And Windows could be like, "Hey, we can see that you're organizing a wedding. Would you like to create invitations?" You can click on the sort of text it's highlighted. It will provide a drop-down menu with basically jump starting you into different sort of projects you could possibly create based on the prompt it's found. So in this case, it's showing you Microsoft Designer. It's like, hey, it looks like you want to create an invitation for a wedding it's based on this theme at this time, this location. You hit one button and it's already created 85% of the invitation for you. You've just got to go in, make any last minute changes so it make it more personal, and then you're basically done. That's the sort of thing Microsoft is really thinking about with AI on Windows 12, making it so you have to work less as a result of allowing Windows to basically use context to analyze things and put things together for you to just instantly access, more or less. So that's one of the things they're working on. I'm sure there's much more than that. We've already talked about, although this might be a Windows 11 thing, AI-based snapping. So Windows will remember sort of specific snap layouts and stuff. That could be coming sooner than Windows 12, but I guess we'll see. Dynamic wallpapers is another one. So you'll be able to feed Windows a 2D image, and it would use AI to generate a parallax effect. So it would be able to say I don't know what's a good example of a parallax wallpaper. I don't know, a bunch of flowers, or like a picture of like a bush or something with lots of layers of different leaves. Windows will be able to take that image and go, right, this layer of leaves is in front of the other layer. And so when you move your mouse across the wallpaper, or if you're using a tablet, if you move the tablet around, the wallpaper will slightly move in the background to give it a bit of a dynamic effect, which will be awesome as well. There's also the AI Copilot that Microsoft has already announced. That's coming to Windows 11, but I'm sure there'll be some upgrades to it for Windows 12 to allow it to work offline. Because to my knowledge, I don't think AI Copilot on Windows 11 works offline. I think it's all online based, because Bing Chat is, right? You can't use Bing Chat without internet because it's a large language model. But I'm sure there'll be some basic functionality, at least for the Copilot, in an offline state. Not that that's a priority for most people, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. Other things, new UI, new features. We've talked about this before. Microsoft even sort of gave us an early look at it last year at Ignite, but there's a new UI that they're working on. Now, I'm still not 100% sure if this will be a universal UI for all devices running Windows 12, or if it would just be for a specific edition, or if it would just be for specific form factors. Like, it could be the tablet mode UI, for example, for 2-in-1s and tablets. But this interface we've seen a bunch of times now changes the desktop interface quite significantly, I think. Your pinned and running apps still along the bottom, but the system tray, the weather button, and the search bar has been moved to the top of the screen. So the search bar sort of hovers in the middle. You've got your weather in the top left, and then you've got the system tray stuff in the top right. And I'm told this interface is supposed to sort of be easier to use for touch, which is unsurprising considering what I just mentioned. And it looks a lot like iPadOS. If you look at iPadOS and you look at this thing, they're very, very similar. I don't think that's a coincidence. iPad is the premier touch platform, I think is fair to say. And so Microsoft is probably trying to mimic some of that at the very least. There's also updates to the lock and log on screen I'm hearing are coming, which will enhance it again for touch as well. File Explorer, we're already seeing File Explorer get updated, but I think there'll be some more touch enhancements coming there also. And I guess we'll see about other inbox apps and stuff. I don't think we're going to see much of a design language change. I think the current Windows design language is nice. I like it a lot. I don't think we're going to see a new design language. We'll just see the UI maybe move around and change and be enhanced somewhat. System requirements. Now, this is one I put in here because I know there was one report from DeskModder earlier this year that claimed that Microsoft will be upping the RAM requirements from 4 gigabytes to 8 gigabytes of Windows 12. I've not been able to confirm that. I'm not too sure if that makes sense because, that really does lock out a lot of low-end PCs quite significantly. That's a big market that they're blocking off for Windows 12. And considering Core PC, which we'll talk about in a second, I don't think it makes sense. I think, at the very least, Core PC editions of Windows 12 will probably still support 4 gigabytes of RAM, especially if they're going after the Chromebook Compete market. It doesn't make sense to block off 4 gig PCs, in my personal opinion, though I guess we'll see. And then that's really all we've heard so far regarding system requirements. I know there's the idea that maybe they'll up the system requirements again, so it only works on Intel 11th gen and up, or 10th gen and up, for example. Maybe again, I really don't know. I feel like the Windows 11 system requirement jump was so aggressive for a reason. I don't know if they're going to be that aggressive every time. I think they were like, right, we've got to just cut everybody off here, and then for the next 10 years, we're going to be all right.
And let's be clear that that block was due to security reasons. It
That's
was
what they say.
with
Yeah,
the it's a TPM thing. So
yeah,
doing another hard block presumes there's newer technology on processors that they can actually make a demarcation for to make that move. As far as I know, there ain't.
yeah.
Yeah, there's the Pluton processor, but that's not a requirement, and that's not across all new processors, at all. So I don't see why would they would make it. It's not a hardware mark for performance, it's a hardware mark for security. But since there's no new security advancements in direct hardware on the chips, I can't see what
Right.
reasoning they could provide for such a cutoff. So
A few people brought up Microsoft Pluton and the possibility of making that a requirement for Windows 12. I don't
no,
think that's going
no,
to happen. No, because
absolutely not.
Pluton has not been adopted much, and I don't even think most of Microsoft Surfaces support Pluton yet. It's still a new
Yeah.
thing. I think if it was to be required, it would have to have been in the market for a decade at least first
Oh
before
yeah.
they
Yeah.
start making it a requirement. I think it's too early for Windows 12 to be asking
I
for
think we
Pluton.
had like one Lenovo laptop come in that had Pluton
Yeah,
like
exactly. It's
enabled.
yeah.
So
Um,
the idea that like they make that the require no, that's complete nonsense.
yeah.
So Pluton's an option. It's not a new
Right.
complete standard for
Yeah.
Windows.
This also depends on context in regards to current Windows and core PC, because we're talking about Windows 12 as this sort of umbrella release, but there's a lot of moving parts underneath that umbrella, specifically in regards to platform. There's two essentially versions of Windows Microsoft are working on here. They're working on Windows 12 for legacy desktop users, which is every PC on the market currently that runs Windows. And then there's also Windows Core PC, which is the more modern platform that they're working on, which is a successor to Windows Core OS. We've been trying for many years to make a modern version of Windows, one that's lightweight, more secure, with a state-separated OS layout, all that other fancy stuff. They're still trying that with Core PC, and that, I'm told, is supposed to sort of roll out, or at least be announced at the same time as the 2024 release is supposed to start rolling out. So, maybe those Core PC editions will have more requirements, such as Pluton or this, that, and the other. Because they can do that. It's an entirely new platform, or rather, it's a new market platform where there isn't a previous version to build off of. It's a new release, and we've already talked about Core PC, where there's a bunch of different editions they're working on for Core PC. There's like a version that would essentially replace legacy desktop. Not that I think it will right away. This is certainly more of a future-facing thing, but one that is more or less a future parity of what Windows can do today, including running legacy programs natively, so not via a virtual machine, which is what Windows 10X did. And then there's also other editions, a more lightweight edition to compete with Chrome OS devices in the low end, which rips out all that legacy Win32 stuff in favor of running web apps, Android apps, PWAs, etc., etc. And then there's an AI specific one as well I've heard that they're working on, which I guess will sort of lean into the whole contextual stuff we just talked about, and obviously be for devices with NPUs or GPUs that support AI only. And that will be a very interesting addition as well. And then that circles us right back to the branding side of things. Will Core PC Windows editions be Windows 12 if the legacy version is Windows 12, or will they do a Windows 12X type thing here where the Core PC stuff is the X release, or it's called something else to differentiate it, or will they not differentiate it? Will it all just be Windows 12 and you're either running Windows 12 Home or Pro on a traditional PC like you are now, or you're running Windows 12 Lite or Windows 12 School Edition based on Core PC? Who knows? This is all stuff that I hope we learn more about over the next year and a half. So that's everything we really know, to my knowledge, about Windows 12 so far. The moment stuff, to my knowledge, will continue once Windows 12 is out. So Windows 12, say Windows 12 comes out in September 2024. by early 2025, there'll be a moment one for Windows 12 already sort of nearing release. And Microsoft will continue doing that for the 3 years Windows 12 is on the market. And then when Windows 13 comes out in 2027, the cycle rinse and repeats, assuming, of course, Microsoft is able to stick to that schedule for more than one release, which is a big
and
ask.
Humanity is still around.
Exactly, yes. So that, to my knowledge, is everything we know so far about Windows 12, Windows Hudson Valley. It's going to be interesting. We've said it before. 2024 is probably going to be a big inflection point for Windows and ARM specifically, and maybe Intel and AMD as well. You know, we might get to a point where all 3 chip manufacturers are shipping processors that are as performant as Apple chips, as in both, you know, performance itself and efficiency. That's the goal, right? I think Qualcomm will get there first because Intel and AMD are already sort of beating the Apple's chips in regards to performance. They're just not there in regards to efficiency. But I think Qualcomm is really confident in its Orion stuff, which is coming next year. And we'll see if they're able to ship a chip that beats the M2 or M3 and is also able to do that while remaining as efficient as an M series chip.
And if not, we got Intel with the... well, I kind of hinted at this last week when we talked about the name change. And I speculated... And it turns out I'm right, which is nice. I've been speculating a lot and getting it right lately. I'll give you a couple examples. So I was saying with the generation thing, they're dropping the generational numbers, but then I said that generation number is because it's already included in the chip number. So chip 13557 or whatever, it means it's 13th gen. So it was always a redundant thing to state. And so I said, 14th gen, would be obviously the next one. So a chip would be like 14577 or whatever. That's partly true. But then I also mentioned, I was like, unless Intel resets the generation thing and starts with Meteor Lake as a new generation, like entirely. And it looks like that's the case. We're putting up an article on everything you need to know about Intel Meteor Lake, probably either later today or tomorrow, so Saturday. And there was a Chinese site, and it was Intel had posted something, and basically this is what they said. There's going to be some 14th gen chips, which are kind of based on this like sort of the older architecture a little bit, but then there's going to be the true Meteor Lake chips, and those will be a reset generation thing. So that's going to be basically a Gen 1 chip, which is kind of cool. It's not unusual. I made the example that, Mortal Kombat literally just did this too, right? Mortal Kombat is starting over. They reset their universe, and it's the new Mortal Kombat coming out is Mortal Kombat 1, which is kind of funny. And I also, this is completely unrelated, but it was happening during this podcast. I was just, of course, browsing through MSN News a little bit. And apparently, I don't know if you know this, Zach, you know Rey from Star Wars? Like they're doing her a movie with her.
Yes.
The character. So the new Jedi Order. And so I was like, I bet they're going to do like Gray Jedi, because that's the thing that they've been kind of like pushing towards. And I just read an article basically saying that, yeah, they're going to like focus on Gray Jedi. So I was just like, yes, I nailed that one too. Completely unrelated, but if you're a Star Wars nerd, that's going to be actually really awesome.
Yeah.
So
real quick, before we move on from this, I should also mention, because it kind of ties into the Windows 12 stuff, Microsoft put out a support doc earlier this week detailing the timeline for when the new Outlook will replace Mail and Calendar. If you remember when we first started talking about new Outlook, back when we called it Outlook Monarch, I said from the beginning the plan is to replace the inbox mail and calendar apps. Now my timeline for that was significantly off, and that's not my fault. That's Microsoft. Microsoft had an ambitious goal of replacing the inbox mail and calendar apps with Windows 11 version 1. So Windows 11 would have rolled out, and Project Monarch would have been the default mail and calendar app, which didn't happen, of course. So when is that happening? Microsoft's actually announced this week that will be happening September 2024 before revising that document and saying actually it'll be by the end of 2024. My guess is it will still be September 2024. I think there was a little bit of backlash because surprisingly there are quite a few fans of the Mail and Calendar app. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the concept of the Mail and Calendar app. I do like the idea of a native lightweight email client, but they've got to support it for it to be good. And they haven't done that. The Windows 11 Mail and Calendar apps got updated last in 2021 so that they would look in line with Windows 11. Before that, they hadn't been updated for, I want to say, at least 2 years, not with any new features at least. So yeah, they've been abandoned for quite some time, and Microsoft has been working on this Monarchs thing. And now they're saying, you know, by the end of 2024, the mail and calendar apps will be taken away and will be replaced with Outlook Monarch. Some people are not going to be too keen on that, but I'm hoping by next fall the Outlook Monarch app is at a place where it's doing things like push notifications when the app is closed, and what's the other one it's waiting for? Oh, third-party support. I know it does Gmail, but it still doesn't do things like Yahoo and iCloud and IMAP and stuff. That all needs to be added by the end of next year. Oh, and a bunch of people have been complaining about lack of touch support. Apparently, it's not very good on touch devices. I can totally see that being a problem. Yeah, Microsoft, if you're listening, that's something you definitely need to address before Mail and Calendar gets taken away. But yeah, that's just sort of, I guess, in line with the Windows 12 stuff, right? So the next version of Windows 12, will likely ship with Project Monarch as the default email experience on that release.
Yeah, it's funny it's taking this long. I've been using the new Outlook experience for a very long time, and I love it. I think it's great. I agree with you. I mean, in theory, the original Mail app was great at the time, but yeah, I think the last new feature they got, they slapped in some new backgrounds. Like that was the big thing that was kind of new about it. Not that they couldn't have innovated around. Of course, they could have, but maybe they were also perhaps limited by the tools of like what UWP were and stuff. What I really like about this new app, one, it runs really well. It is kind of hilarious how it does. If you let it run in your taskbar, every once it shows like a little arrow for it needs to be updated, and you just close it out and it updates. It's amazing how many of those they do. They do sometimes like 2 a day, seems like. So they're forever updating it. But it runs well. But what is great is the functionality, because you and I agree on this, where the original Mail app was great for its simplicity, but it was also a little too simple. Yet, if you wanted more, the actual Outlook app was just insanity. When I look at that thing still, I'm like, I do not need this. This is way too much stuff. This app is like a blend between the two, and it definitely gives you many more features, but I don't feel like I'm overwhelmed by all the features too. And I think it's a really nice hybrid between both of those apps. And like I said, it runs well. I haven't really had any issues. I think it looks really nice. I like the little patterns they have. And yeah, it doesn't do notifications if it's closed, but I just leave it running anyway, and I don't find it a big deal. But I could definitely see how people would want that fixed. That's a possibility with web apps, that can be done. So yeah, I don't know. I really like it. Hopefully they get it out sooner than later, just because I'm tired of seeing pre on my icon.
Someone in the chat mentions the controversy comes from the fact that it's a WebView 2 app and not native. Yeah, but that's such a that complaint needs to stop at this point.
Yeah, that's a dumb complaint.
Yeah, especially for email. For an email client, most people look at their email in a website anyway.
Yep, most people go to gmail.com.
Exactly.
Yep. That's how most people view Gmail.
I really don't think it's a big deal that this web client is a WebView 2 thing. I would prefer it to be WebView 2 over Electron, for example.
Oh, yeah. Hands down. And listen, for the hardcore users who are like, I need a native app and I need it. Well, you still have Outlook. Go knock yourself out and use Outlook. It's a native app. Enjoy.
There are brilliant third-party email clients that are native on Windows. So the Thunderbird, I believe, was a Firefox Thunderbird. Is a great one, for example. There's lots of Newton Mail has a Windows app, though I wouldn't say it's very good. I've tried Newton Mail for Windows, it's not very good, but they still have one. There's lots and lots of Bluemail or Bluebird, I can't remember what it's called. Lots and lots and lots of third-party email clients that are native.
I just haven't seen, maybe I'm missing something and someone can explain it to me. What's the downside of a WebView 2 app? For email, what functionality am I missing?
I think it's more to do with a feel and how it looks, because obviously a web app is never going to look as native to Windows as a native Windows app. They can get close. I do think the Outlook Mail app does a good job of blending in if
you showed this app to any normal human being,
no, they wouldn't tell.
They wouldn't know what you're talking about. They'd be like, that's just an app. There's no way to tell this thing's a WebView app. I get if you're a developer, but no offense, screw those people. Like, developers
Yeah.
are just you're a different level of knowledge, right? You can recognize all this stuff, but
I mean,
a normal human being ain't
yeah.
going to be able to see this stuff.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are certainly good ways and bad ways of doing WebView 2 apps. Bad one, the Microsoft Store app on Windows 10 before Windows 11 came up. The Microsoft Store, when it was a WebView app thing, absolutely atrocious. That might be the worst web app I've ever experienced. That thing was awful. It was slow, laggy, buggy, terrible. That is a perfect example of how not to do WebView or web-based apps. But the new Outlook app, I actually think is a really nice looking web view experience. I really don't mind how it looks and stuff. It looks like Outlook.com, and I've always liked the UI on Outlook.com.
Yeah.
And, Microsoft are going to the effort of making it so that the title bar has like
Well,
translucent.
the web technology has evolved. It keeps changing,
Yes.
and we talked about that with PWAs. Like, PWA is an ongoing thing. That just keeps getting better and better. And so, yeah, it's a thing that's going to improve over time. But
The same person says
I can't tell.
it's also about the RAM usage. WebView 2 apps consumes more memory. That's relative though, because if you consider the fact that everybody's running a web browser anyway, WebView 2, to my knowledge, WebView
Yeah.
2 apps to my knowledge can just jump in on the Edge rendering engine,
Who
right?
complains about this? No offense, but like, Windows has really good RAM management. Who's complaining about RAM in 2023? What are you
Yeah.
running, 4 gigs of RAM on your device? I run 8 gig laptops. What do I care about the RAM? Who's looking at RAM? Like, honestly, I bring it up as a joke sometimes to see like Dan's 157 tabs open, how much RAM it's consuming. But like, who the hell is like going Control Alt Delete, bringing up the task manager, looking at RAM usage, and being like, "Oh, there you go." But like, what's the actual impact? Was it your computer slow? No. I mean, this is like 1996 problems. Like, no one's looking at RAM anymore. This is the dumbest thing ever. No offense, your comment's dumb.
I
And a lot
think
of people now have 16 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of RAM. You go up to 96. Like, who's complaining about RAM usage of a mail app? Come on. It's not, if you launched it and like your system slowed down, okay, you may have an argument. But I've not heard that as a complaint. And I run a lot of laptops, and I've never seen that happen. If anything, this thing runs better than most mail apps I've tried.
well, there you are. That's Dan's rant.
People who try to use Windows 11 on 2 gigs of RAM, yeah, those people are probably you're busting out a 8-inch tablet from the Windows 8 days, and you're putting Windows 11 on it. I don't know. I don't find this RAM usage. Now you mentioned Electron, yeah,
Trash.
Electron's
Yeah.
Electron's one of those apps where like you feel how slow it can
Right.
be,
Yeah.
like the way it loads and stuff like that. But if you're complaining about a web app, a web view app for mail, you're just complaining about the internet and like web
Right.
browsers, right? Because it's just no different than loading your web browser. So why not talk about Edge using RAM and like going to, I don't know, Bing.com or WindowsCentral.com and talk about RAM, right? Then you're just talking about the whole web as being consuming RAM because of your browser.
Yeah.
So I find that's a very specious argument.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the news regarding the Outlook Mail app. It's coming into 2024.
Sorry,
It will probably
I'm a
be
ranty day today.
a Windows 12 thing. And that I think is all of the Windows. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were going to segue. I was going to say, before we get to the Duo stuff, I was going to segue into jumping ahead to my ROG Ally, only
Okay.
because you brought up with Windows 12 and the touch stuff, which I think is
Right.
really relative to such a device. So I was actually very much, so I have a Steam Deck, I have the Razer Edge. I like both a lot. I use the Steam Deck quite a bit because I have a lot of my libraries on Steam. And there's just something nice about that big 7-inch screen, which I have to admit, I do like better than the Edge. The Edge's display is very small. It's a very good display because it's OLED and 120 hertz versus the Steam Deck's display, which is 7 inches, but lower resolution or, lower PPI, and it's washed out. It's not nearly as crisp. So I was actually heavily looking at the G Cloud by Logitech. It's funny, Jez Corden just got one in, and he was just like, "Wow, this thing's actually really nice." And I was on the fence about buying that because that's got a 7-inch display, and it's actually a pretty good display on there too. And it looks like a cool device. Uh, and it's only $300. I agree, that's actually probably a lot, and I think it's going to be a hindrance for that category. But because even I was just like, "Wow, $300 is kind of expensive." But then Jez wrote an article because he got the ROG Ally. and he's been using it extensively, especially with his travel. And he wrote an article saying basically I was wrong about the ROG Ally, and I read about it and like I was like, you know what? Now I'm kind of tempted. So we have it here at Best Buy. It's on display, and I like Best Buy like a lot of people. It's simply because you can buy it, try it. If you don't like it, you can return it in like 14 days, sometimes longer if you have a card with them. So I was like, oh, let me give it a shot to see if this thing is really better. And I'm not going to necessarily bring anything new to the table. If you read like a bunch of reviews on the ROG Ally, I'll just kind of confirm a lot of it. The out of box experience is not amazing. Yeah, this thing is fundamentally a Windows computer, right? So you have to go through the Windows setup. Actually, the first time I turned it on, it jumped into the BIOS or the UEFI screen, which is like all like graphically cool looking. It's got like a small fan, and it looks nice. But I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why am I looking at this screen? And I don't know if that was on purpose or not. All I know was like I was not about to start messing with the settings on there. I was like, is this how I screw up the device? Like, so I don't know, got out of that and was able to go back to and finally booted into Windows. And so, you and I joked about this on Twitter about Windows 11 is like terrible on it, but yet it's also not terrible. It's a mixed bag. I will say Windows 11 on this today is way better than what it would have been like a year or two ago before they improved the touch mode that they rolled out. What was that? Moment 2? They did that?
Yes, the shy taskbar and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that goes a long way to making Windows 11 useful because I have a GPD. In fact, I powered up my GPD the other day because every time you open that thing, you're just like, dude, this thing's so cool. It's got a full keyboard and everything. And then you turn it on and you wait 10 minutes for it to, do its thing. You're like, oh, that's right. I don't use this thing. I'm not even sure. I try to update it to like the latest Windows 11. I'm not sure its status because we're talking days. But running those kind of devices, I've run those in the past, and it's like, oh, it's neat, it's full Windows, but now everything is really tiny. I will say the touch mode for Windows 11, which this defaults to, is actually pretty good. Like, it's not amazing, but it's way better than what it was. And so they're like halfway there, what it should be, right? I think ultimately they should do is, of course, just have their own UI or UX laying on top of it, right? For this kind of mode, which is sort of what Asus has already done. But some people were bringing up, jokingly, but half jokingly, like the old media player UI, which is eventually what Windows Phone was kind of based off of and stuff, which has like this kind of card system. And, Xbox had that too for a while. And yeah, I agree. You take something like the Xbox layout, maybe a card system, and just make that. You can tell when it's sort of like Windows 8. What people got Windows 8 and hated, they should kind of bring back and do here, which is you basically have a UI interface for gaming and all gaming related stuff, but you can still kind of minimize and get it out of the way and still just have your full Windows 11 in the background. I think actually that model would work here pretty well. But the touch thing isn't too bad. You're able to it works pretty well. And in terms of like the device itself, it's way lighter than Steam Deck, which I didn't really anticipate. Like it's significantly lighter. And the reason that's important, Steam Deck is pretty heavy. And if you hold it for a while, you do get wrist fatigue from it. I like the ergonomics slightly better on Steam Deck, but because this thing is so much lighter, it feels easier, like better to hold on to for a longer time. People have complained that some of the buttons and the D-pad and thumbsticks are a little bit mushy. Yeah, it's technically true, but it's not to the detriment of like performance in games, right? It's not like it's missing things when you press down on the button. Not at all. It's very accurate. I've had no problems with it. So it's more of just a different way of doing things and different. It feels a little bit different, but I've had no issues. Audio is incredible on it, surprisingly. I know we remarked about this in our review by Rebecca Spears, where even at like 20% volume, this thing is like loud. It's pretty crazy how loud it gets. And the audio is really nice. Like they're front-facing speakers that just kind of blast you. Although a lot of people probably use headphones too. So that's a good option. Battery life, yeah, not its strong point, although with its recent updates, it depends on how you run it, because Steam Deck, you can adjust the TDP, basically the wattage of the chip. I never really did though. I just kind of let it do its thing. But this one actually has sort of like different modes. So they have like a silent mode, a normal mode, and then like a turbo mode. And all those use different wattages for the chip. And it's a little bit more like it's a little bit more there for you. And like when you go for like a AAA, almost like a first person shooter, yeah, you're going to want to run it in turbo mode because it makes a big difference. Whereas if you're doing top down 2D stuff, you can definitely run it in silent and be totally fine. Uh, the battery life isn't so it depends on for battery life, it depends how you're running it. If you're running in turbo, you'll probably kill the battery in an hour. If you're running it silent, you can go like 3, maybe even 4 hours with it. So it really kind of depends on the game you're playing. But it's kind of true on Steam Deck too. There's no getting around the fact that the battery life isn't amazing. I never found Nintendo Switch, which I have as well, to be amazing on battery life either. It was fine, but it wasn't like, oh my God, this is like, this is an Apple level type battery life, right? For their M1 chips. Um, but the way, and I've mentioned this previously, the way I use these handheld is 98% of the time I'm on the couch. I'm watching TV, hanging out with my SO, got all my pets around. Maybe I'm using my phone here and there. And I'm just sitting there chilling. And the reason, and that's kind of how I'm doing gaming these days, instead of like, because now when while I have an amazing desktop, I don't want to, you know, leave everyone in the living room, come to my office, sit down, and like close the door and go into the gaming mode. Like for some people, that's what they want to do, and I totally get that. But for some of us who want to, you only get a couple of hours a day with your SO, you, you could do that, but you probably won't have a very good relationship for very long. So I play it mostly on the couch, in which case I'm usually plugged in or have the plug next to me because it's just the way I do it. So I don't mind the battery life too much, but if you plan to use this like all the time away from the wall and outside, yeah, it's going to be a problem. Even with traveling, um, I don't find myself gaming as much, partly because if I'm flying, you often need an online connection for some games, and that could be problematic. And I end up just reading and stuff like that. But I mean, it is what it is there. But what about the actual gaming experience on it? It's incredible. It is really, it's a big difference between Steam. For one, the display is just way better. Obviously, it's 120 hertz. I believe it's slightly higher resolution, uh, and it makes a huge difference. Steam Deck's display is fine, but it's not a great display. And I get the reasons they did that, but the display on this thing is really, really nice. Now, will you actually hit games at 120 frames per second? Unlikely, right? Unless you turn everything really down. But it almost doesn't kind of matter. It's just nice it's there. But playing all my original games on there that I was just playing on Steam Deck, everything, just the color and the saturation is better. And they have like quick modes for jumping between different profiles. So if you're doing an FPS game, they have an FPS profile. They have one for RTS. They have one for Vivid. They have a night mode. So you can quickly switch between those to get the color scale you want. But the picture just looks way better. And then this is AMD. And they have the ASR, and I forgot all this stuff that they call it, but they have their own sharpening and upscaling technologies, which when you turn on really does make a big difference. I started playing finally God of War only for about 10 minutes. But it looked really incredible. I was getting 40 to 50 frames per second on it. Uh, but it looked fantastic. I was just like, damn, I almost want to try it on my desktop just to see how good I can get the specifications on that running. But it was like really kind of cool to play like that. And so the other question I had was, and I mentioned this earlier, was I have a lot of my games on Steam. And so that's why I like Steam Deck, right? Steam did a really good job with its Linux-based operating system where you're just in your Steam library and you can quickly, easily download things. And it was funny, within the last 2 weeks, Steam updated their client, their PC clients. And so they have their big mode that they called it. And people noticed when you turn on big mode now, all of a sudden it looked very much like Steam Deck. And that's the experience you get on here. When I fired up Steam, I was just like, this looks a lot like my Steam Deck. So I felt immediately back home. Like I was like, oh, I know where all my games are. I know where everything is. It scrolls horizontally. I can click into things and then stuff. Like it's all very similar. It's not one to one, but it's pretty darn close. Um, and so that was really good for me because that's how I play a lot of my games. Of course, I use Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. I have that. So I logged into that one. That was cool. And then of course I also have I don't know, a few other ones. Well, Epic, yeah, I logged into Epic, and you can do that. And then what's nice is their Crate, they call it Crate SE or Crate Armory SE, I think it's called. Their software that runs on top. So you hit a dedicated button and it goes full screen, and it just shows your games in your library, and accumulates everything. It'll take stuff from Xbox, Steam, Epic, and it has like the game logo and all that, and it'll have like a little icon in the corner so you know where it's coming from, which is nice. But it automatically populates and all that, and you just browse and click and play. Now there are quirks, right? This is a Windows 11 PC, so I'd be lying if there weren't like weird onboarding experience things. Like, yeah, sometimes you go to run a game for the first time, and you got to download the shaders, which actually happens on Steam Deck too, so that's not unusual. Or it needs to install DirectX runtimes, which actually happens on Steam, I think, once in a while as well. But sometimes you pop in and out of Windows, and it's a little strange and things. It usually when it's the first time you run a game, there's sometimes could be a glitch. I've only noticed that's like on one out of every like 7 games though, so it's not like a ton, but you get little weird kind of things that, you know, is Windows 11 based. But if you're a PC gamer already, none of this is new. None of it is bad. Um, Updating stuff is weird. It's got like its own firmware. It's got AMD drivers, AMD GPU things. It's got Bluetooth firmware. So there's like a lot of like, it's very PC-ish. And the way you update that stuff, yeah, you have Windows updates, and then you have like an Asus, my Asus app. And like the way it downloads stuff, it's a little tricky. Like there's no progress bar, and I've done at least 2 BIOS updates or UEFI updates, so that's the dangerous one where you're like praying nothing goes wrong. There's like a lot of that stuff that happens. But if, like I said, if you're already a PC gamer, it's just straightforward. If you're coming from a Mac, good luck. You're gonna be like, this is why I hate PCs. It'll do nothing for that. And Steam Deck is like right in between those two, right? Steam Deck is uh, it's not quite as smooth as like a Mac in terms of
Yeah.
installing things, but it's better than Windows 11. But yeah, I'm keeping it. The RGB on the thumbsticks, unnecessary, cool. You know, you can turn it off if you don't want it, or you can turn it down and all that kind of stuff. Um, I did just get in these headphones, which I'll be taking a look at hopefully next week. The Razer Hammerhead Pro Hyperspeed earbuds, which also have their own RGB because, of course, and these are THX certified. And I've been using that with this because they have a dongle that you connect up to, and it's very there's no delay, right? So it's kind of cool. But the audio on those are incredible. But I've been playing a lot more games, and that for me that's a test, right? We've joked around this podcast how I want to be a gamer, but I don't have the time or energy. I end up watching YouTube videos. I spend 2 hours a day at the gym. Like I just don't find the time to do this stuff. Um, but I've been playing every night. I've been forcing myself because the experience has been so good. I like the 7-inch display on it. Um, and it's pretty amazing playing like Gods of War on this thing. I can play Destiny 2. Uh, there were a couple. Oh, I think I'm about to buy Guardians of the Galaxy. It's on sale right now through Steam for like $18. That game is supposed to be really good. Um, it's pretty wild though, playing like a full-on desktop PC game on this thing and having like the resolution and the quality of the graphics actually like impressive. Like you're looking at this like, damn, this I can look at this. I can look at this for many hours. Um, is it worth $699? Because that is hell of expensive. I'm not gonna like even I was just like, damn, and I used $100 gift card. Um, it is expensive. So you got to be really into this stuff. But so far, if you're on the fence, like I said, maybe just go to Best Buy. They should have it on display so you can at least try it out. But buy one, return it in 14 days, if you don't like it. But I'm impressed by it. What I hope, and Dave 2D made a good point about this, is that with Steam Deck, you're getting really good quality support. We know there's no new Steam Decks coming. Like they're doing it like every like it's like Nintendo Switch. They're going to write it out for 2 or 3 years at least, which is actually a good thing because there's so many accessories for Steam Deck. You don't want to change it up, right? And you don't want to be persuaded every year to buy a new Steam Deck. I feel like Asus might do that though. Like I feel like Asus in 12 months will have a brand new one of these out, And that's problematic for two reasons. One, it's like now you're like, oh, now I got to upgrade, and you have to deal with that whole thing that many of us don't want to. And the other thing is like, what has the support on this one? Do they stop support, or they stop paying attention? Are they going to pull a Microsoft, like paying attention to it? So there's a little bit of concern there, but is it a way better Steam Deck? Yeah, it is at this point. It really is, and especially as someone who's a hardcore Steam player, I've made the transition really easily, and I've just been blown away by it. Zach, we've talked about this though. You have no interest in these devices because you like playing on your console and your couch, right?
Yeah, I have no interest at all. But yeah, in regards to the UI side of things, I totally agree with you. That whole idea of having like a layer on top of the desktop was something Microsoft even experimented with last year with
Yeah,
that hackathon project that leaked. That was basically what that was. It was a developer or a group of developers at Microsoft looking at ways they could improve the experience for Steam Deck like devices. But the guy who was sort of in charge of that sort of hackathon said that it never got off the ground. There was just not enough interest. But that was back then. I think the market's changed quite significantly since then, and this market of
yeah.
Steam Deck, kind of like devices running Windows, has sort of blown up a little bit. And so maybe Microsoft will revisit this topic for Windows 12 or some sort of feature update for Windows 12 in the future. But yeah, I'd love to see it because I think it is necessary. I totally agree.
Yeah, this is that chicken egg problem, right? It's
Mm.
like, does this market clearly has a little bit of momentum. I've argued that the cloud devices, as good as I think they I think are not doing well. I think it's part of it's a messaging issue as well as a pricing issue. But and then you have the handhelds that are full on little computers, Steam Deck, Linux, and of course you can put Windows on it. And then this one, which is Windows. And then the question is like, all right, if this market doesn't succeed, is it because, Microsoft didn't do enough? But then Microsoft will be like, well, we don't want to devote resources to making this thing better if it's not going to do well, right? So it's like, but they really should. I will say Asus, and I give Asus sometimes, some flack for some of their designs. They have their software is kind of cool on this. So you have like two buttons on each side that are quickly near the thumbsticks and stuff. And one of them is just an overlay that pops out from the left side. And it's just a quick access menu. And you can customize it and put different things there. So you can quickly switch your modes from like silent, normal, and silent performance and turbo. You can switch color modes. You can turn off the AMD upscaling and sharpening stuff. You could do a screenshot. There's even a show desktop thing, which is kind of cool because you might have a couple windows open. If you just hit that, it'll minimize everything to your desktop. And then that was actually, and you can also bring up the overlay to see your performance in real time. So that's a really cool widget thing that just pops out from the side and you hit it again and it disappears. And then on the right side, you have a button that when you press brings up basically your game library to jump between games. And then of course you have settings and stuff in there as well. So they did, I think, a pretty good job with it. But this is something would be easier if Microsoft just standardized. And yeah, we know they can do it on Xbox in terms of that layout, and they've done the game bar on Windows. Like they could just do a little something here. Although we were petitioning Stardock, who makes a lot of great third-party software that fixes all the UI stuff that people don't like in Windows. We're kind of petitioning them to do something, although they said it would probably have to work with Asus on this to make it happen, but they could. And there is a little bit of interest there from them. So, but we'll be covering it. I'm not sure this device is selling well because of its price, and I think it's definitely for hardcore users, which is a bit of a shame because it's really awesome. It really is kind of the thing that I think a lot of us have been waiting for. It is expensive, and the battery life isn't amazing yet. But there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it on the market. I know there's like that other brand that has they're like a smaller kind of Kickstarter type brand that has something similar, but not at this level. And it's just if you're into this handheld, and I like it. For me, there's something about sitting on the couch and curling up and just having this thing a couple inches from your face, playing, maybe have headphones on, but you can still watch TV and interact with people and still just have a good time. I think for people who like to game like that, I think it's pretty awesome. So that's my ROG Ally stuff. I don't know. Now I'm tempted also to get that G Cloud just because Jez got one and he really likes it. But Jez likes almost everything right out the right. Jez like unboxes things and is immediately in love with it. Says it's amazing and it's just like the best thing in the world. And 2 weeks later, he's like, "Oh, it sucks."
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
um, we'll see what happens there. But all right, let's move on to I guess the Surface Duo. Speaking of support and everything, so tell us a story here with this Android 13 and what's going on there, and should people even pursue this?
Yeah, so an ex Microsoft developer by the name of Ty Gwen, I think. I can't remember. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, unfortunately, but his name's Ty, and he, I believe, worked on the Surface Duo when he was at Microsoft, but he has now released an early build of the Pixel Experience GSI for the first generation Surface Duo. This is, for those who don't know, in the Android space, there's a thing called Pixel Experience, and that is a ROM that you can install on a bunch of third-party Android devices that may no longer be in support, or in some cases may still be in support. That brings it up to date with the latest version of Android, with all of or a bunch of Pixel features and interfaces that you can find on Google Pixel devices. So this is great for older, say the Pixel 3, for example, which is no longer supported by Google. You can install the Pixel Experience, which is a custom ROM, and it brings you up to date with the latest version of Android and all of the recent Pixel Experience enhancements, even though Google no longer officially supports it. But you can also do it for third-party ones like OnePlus or Samsung devices in some cases. And this week, now the Surface Duo joins those ranks. Now, this is there's some caveats here, because although it does run on the Surface Duo now, and there is some basic support in there for things like postures, so you can turn it into single screen mode and flip the device around, and it will correctly adjust the UI and flip around and stuff. When it comes to dual screen support, it's still not fully there yet, and that's mainly Google's fault. The Google UI doesn't really have native experiences for dual screen devices. That's something Microsoft had to do, put a lot of custom effort into making happen on the Surface Duo with its version of Android. But this early Pixel Experience ROM does give you Android 13. So if you wanted to try Android 13, you can now. It does have the dual pane notification shade, so it does look relatively okay on Surface Duo. It's still clearly not designed for it. That gap down the middle is still a little bit thicker than what Android is expecting. Android usually expects, like a touch divider, like the Galaxy Fold's sort of gutter, rather than a massive gap between the two screens. But it's mostly there. So what isn't working right now is the device won't know which screen to open apps on. It will just open them across both screens. You can do side-by-side windowing by using the Android 13 dock, which is centered, so it does cut through the divide. But you can drag an app to one side of the screen, and then drag an app to the other screen, and it will run side by side, and it will look kind of like Surface Duo and stuff. So that's kind of cool as well. I don't know if the Ty is going to be able to make it so the device is able to recognize, which screen you invoke an app on and have it open on one half. Because I believe that's more of an Android / that's something you've got to change in Android. Maybe it's possible. I don't know, but I guess we will have to see. But yeah, this is an early look. So if you wanted to give it a go, you can. And if you use your Duo in a single screen mode for most of the time, this would be great, because like I said, it already recognizes single screen mode. And when you're running in single screen mode, it works like any other Android phone. So that's pretty cool. And to my knowledge, this is the first third-party ROM for Surface Duo that's been released. I don't think there's been any others. I could be wrong about that, but I've not seen any others. So yeah.
Well, unless you count the what was it, Windows 10X?
Oh yeah, Windows 10X and Windows 11. Yeah, I mean like specifically Android on, because Microsoft made a big deal about the bootloader being unlockable on that device, with the intention of developers would be able to like build versions of Android for it, and then nobody ever did. Not a single popular ROM
lazy
decided to support Surface Duo, except now with Pixel Experience, thanks to Ty, which will hopefully improve over time as well. So yeah, fantastic work.
All right, moving on. Zach will continue talking about Surface Fall expectations. What we're hearing about that possible October event.
Yes.
Will we get a Surface Laptop Studio 2 finally?
Yes, at least that's what I'm hearing. So, we'll keep this quick because I don't know too much currently. I'm kind of sort of finally starting to hear what the lineup's going to be, but I'm still waiting for specifics about each product. So this fall, we're expecting a new Surface Go, new Surface Laptop, new Surface Laptop Studio, and a new Surface Laptop Go. So that would be Surface Go 4, Surface Laptop 6, Surface Laptop Studio 2, and Surface Laptop Go 3. So it's going to be very laptop heavy this fall, I think. Surface Pro 10, to my knowledge, is not coming in the fall. That has been pushed back to sometime in 2024. Not too sure when, but that's now a 2024 thing. But these other 4 devices are currently at this very time pegged for September, October announced time frame. We'll start with the Surface Go 4, which we talked about before. Go 4 supposed to maintain the same sort of shape and size, but it will be powered by ARM for the first time. The design may be updated slightly so it can support the sort of updated type cover designs that the Surface Pro 9 is running. Obviously, it has a miniaturized version because the magnets and the connection between the keyboard accessory and the device is different on the Pro 9 and Pro 8 versus Pro 7. So I think they're going to update those pogo pins on the Go forward to match that. I could be wrong, but I think that's what they're planning to do. But the big change there will be an ARM-powered device for the first time. It will be a Snapdragon 7C based chip, to my knowledge. There'll be an Intel option for those who still need it, but the sort of 399 model will be Qualcomm 7C, and I believe there will also be a 5G model as a result, which is pretty nice. Surface Laptop 6 is supposed to be coming this fall as well. That will be Intel 13th gen. I'm not too sure if AMD is going to be coming back. I think it might be, but I don't know the specifics currently. Regarding the design, we're kind of all hoping for a design update, right? Now, I do know Microsoft has been testing updated designs for the Surface Laptop line. I don't know if they'll be ready in time for Laptop 6, but I'm hoping they are. They've had these designs in circulation internally for over a year at this point, so I think at this point it should be ready. But if that does ship, thinner bezels would be the big sort of change there. Currently, the bezels on Surface Laptop 5 are pretty thick if you compare them to things like the MacBook Air and stuff.
THICC.
Yeah. So the Laptop 6, assuming it does come with this updated design I've heard about, it will have thinner bezels finally around the top 3 bezels, which is really nice. Laptop Studio 2, no design changes there to my knowledge. We're not even getting a new size. I know a lot of people are hoping maybe for a 16-inch model. Have not heard that there's a 16-inch model in the works. Maybe they'll surprise us with that, but I've not heard anything so far. But
yeah, I think just quick comment on that. I think that's probably in the cards, but I'm not sure the sales of Laptop Studio 1, especially because that came out and then there was the pandemic, and that was during the pandemic, I believe, the PC market necessarily hasn't recovered, so I'm not sure they want to introduce a new SKU when the market should recover later this year, but that's like starting, right? So I think they still want to see if they can sell more of Laptop Studio 2. And then if they do that, they could do 2 things. They could just wait till Laptop Studio 3 to bring a 16-inch, or during mid-cycle, they could launch a 16-inch when the market is a little bit better, which would be unprecedented for them. They've done that before with the book series where they announced the book performance base, right?
Yeah. So on the inside, we're expecting Intel 13th gen and NVIDIA RTX 40 series, 4050 or 4060 to my knowledge, one of those two, which will be a huge upgrade over the 3050 in the current Surface Laptop Studio, as well as 13th gen, big upgrade over 11th gen? Yeah, 11th gen in the Surface Laptop Studio 1. So that's going to be nice. And then lastly, Laptop Go 3. The Surface Laptop Go line, to my knowledge, is quite popular among Surface customers. And the 3rd gen, to my knowledge, will be getting an updated design. Not too sure what exactly is going to be changing with it, but I have heard an updated design is on the cards. So yeah, that'll be fun. I'm not too sure what that's going to be inside that. I assume it will be Intel 13th gen. But, the Laptop Go historically has launched with a last gen chip, so it could be Intel 12th gen. Because actually, what is the Surface Laptop Go 2 running? 11th? It must be 11th gen, right? Yeah, it must be 11th gen. So yeah, maybe it'll be 12th, maybe 13th. But it'll be an updated chip. And to my knowledge, no, it won't be ARM. I am hearing that Microsoft will start incorporating ARM in more Surface devices at some point, but it won't be happening this year. That's more likely going to be a 2024, 2025 endeavor, and it will be Surface Laptop and Laptop Go, I think, will be the next wave of ARM devices, outside of Surface Go, of course. So it'll go Surface Pro, Surface Go, Surface Laptop Go, Surface Laptop, to my knowledge. But we'll have to wait and see. That's all still in flux and stuff.
Yeah, Surface Laptop with a stronger ARM processor will be really kind of the dream device for, I think, a lot of people. Get great performance, great battery life. I'm excited about Surface Laptop Studio 2. I've gone on record. You and I talked about that. I still think it's their best device they've ever
You really
released.
like it,
Uh,
yeah.
I think it's just it's the perfect size. The keyboard is awesome. The design, I think, is just unlike anything else. I love the design. I think it's cool. I love the side venting. They continue to do side venting. Like that's the big difference between Surface laptops and PCs is like they don't have intakes on the bottom of the device. So when you put it on your lap, you're blocking the fans. They put this one intakes from like one side and outputs to the other side, and so it doesn't affect your lap, and you're not ever interfering with the flow. And the fans are pretty quiet. Uh, the display is great. Display, you and I, you're more of an advocate this than I. I wouldn't mind a higher resolution display, and I know you're really for a higher resolution
Yeah.
display, but uh, I think they could even get away around that just by making the display a little bit more punchy, maybe
OLED.
OLED or
Yeah,
something,
that'd be
or
nice.
Dolby Vision, and just like kind of messing with that stuff could go a long way. The pen, the way it like snaps to the bottom of it is genius. Uh, and it was one of the few devices that they've released that not only has a pretty flawless overall design. Yeah, you can argue the ports, right? Okay, it only has a couple of Type C ports, right? Uh, sure. I would never say no to more ports, and I can see how people would find that very limiting. But this device had no issues coming out. Like I don't remember any controversies around it. Things weren't
No, yeah.
working. Like it's pretty rare for them to launch a brand new form factor. A Surface laptop was kind of like that too, though. But they just did such a nice job with it. Like again, people don't appreciate how when you look at the thing, there's no speaker holes. There's just no speakers. It's below the keyboard. You can't see it. The camera's good on it. The Windows Hello works really well. Um, I just think it's a really, really cool device. And yeah, the one thing you can kind of complain is maybe the performance with 11 gen, which at the time was fine. But yeah, going into the 13 gen now, with jumping with all the different cores and going to a 40 series GPU, yeah, I think it's gonna be a beast. And I don't know. It's just one of my favorite laptops to use for some reason. I use it more than anything, pretty much. So
I would love for them to do a black version. I think it would look so good in black.
it's gonna pick up fingerprints.
Well, no,
But
if
you're
they
so
use
weird with this stuff, though. You're like, I want a black version. But then when they brought back, they had black Surface Pros and they brought back
no,
platinum. You're
this is
like,
wrong.
that's
You're
the
wrong.
real color.
No, yeah, you're right. Okay, listen. The black on the Surface Pro X was terrible. That I couldn't stand the
Yeah.
black on that model. That was unbelievable. That was offensive because of how fingerprint magnety it was. But the black on the most recent
True.
Pro 8s and the Pro 9, really good at rejecting fingerprints. I mean, you can really,
That's
if you
true.
really try, it will show up there. But
Yeah,
just
true.
handling it normally, it does a good job at rejecting those. And so I'm
That's
a much
true.
bigger fan of the Pro 8 and Pro 9s black than I was of the Pro X's. So obviously, when I say a black laptop Studio 2, I'm referring to whatever they're using on the Pro 8 and Pro 9. That on a laptop Studio 2 would be really nice. But yeah, if they're going to go back to using the Pro X's black, get out of here. Absolutely not unacceptable.
That was because of the metal they used, I think, with the
Yes.
Pro X.
Yeah, it's
Which
aluminium.
was different.
So yeah, I did always think that the silver Pro X was a lot nicer than the black one. I don't know that
Okay.
silver they used on the Pro X was like almost white. It was such a nice sort of silver they used, whereas the black one was just like horrible.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess if they did that, a black Surface laptop, I don't know if I would prefer it over the platinum, but it could be interesting. The only reason is just because we have a lot of black laptops, whereas I think the platinum one sticks out a little bit more and just looks kind of cooler. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that and hopefully, yeah, that redesigned Surface laptop. It doesn't need to be dramatically redone.
No,
But
I
yeah,
agree.
thinner bezels, just haptic touchpads, right?
Yes,
You got
please.
that in the laptop studio. That's another thing in the laptop studio. It's great. Its touchpad is phenomenal. Sensel's technology there. Hopefully they bring that to laptop. I think they will. I think it's just, of
Somebody,
course they will.
I want somebody to make a high-end ultrabook, which I know sounds dumb when I say that because an ultrabook is high-end. But what I mean is, I want like a really thin and light 15-inch laptop with like a haptic touchpad and the display of a professional grade laptop. Like, for example, I want 120 hertz with a high resolution panel with the thin and light nature of a Surface laptop, for example. Not even Apple does this. The MacBook Air is a thin and light laptop, but the screen they
Samsung
use
Galaxy Book 3 Pro is close to that. It
is
doesn't have a haptic
close.
touchpad,
Yeah, it's
but it
exactly what I'm
has a
saying. Like,
powerful GPU.
yeah, but I don't even need the GPU. I'm really just looking for a really high end display on a laptop that I can do writing on. That's really all I'm. I know. I realize I'm a niche case for this, but
I mean, I would still recommend to anyone the Lenovo Yoga 9i. That display is
yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
It's a
See,
4K OLED.
the closest I ever
I think
got
it's
to that
4K.
was the 13-inch Surface Book 3 without a GPU, because I don't think really many people know this, and I didn't know this until I actually saw one in person. But the i5 model of the Surface Book 3 without a GPU has a thinner keyboard base. The keyboard base isn't humped like it is on the i7 model or the one with GPU, and so it's so much lighter and thinner. And that device with the high end screen, the only thing it was missing is 120 hertz. That's all I want. 120 hertz with that resolution, 3000 by 2000, with a beautiful keyboard and trackpad, and preferably with the trackpad being haptic. That's what I want. And nobody makes it to my knowledge, apart from maybe Lenovo. So that'd be interesting to check out.
We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. I don't know. I think we'll kind of wrap it up here. We thought we were gonna have a short podcast, and we ended up going 100
we think
an
that
hour
every
18.
time, and then it's always 90 minutes.
Yeah. Well, everybody's teasing me in comments because I haven't brought up Elon and Zuckerberg. Listen, I'll just make a quick comment. If you don't know, so I think Elon challenged Zuckerberg to a fight, and Zuckerberg just like responded with like send location now, which was hilarious. And then Musk responded like Vegas Octagon or something like that. So probably tied into UFC. Now, who knows? The thing is, like, I think Zuckerberg is dead serious because he actually trains in jiu-jitsu, as everybody probably knows by now. He's been doing it for 18 months, and he has like a world-class teacher, which should surprise anyone since he can afford it. And he's been working out for a while too. And he's 39, and Musk is turning 52, which, if you follow UFC, basically once you hit about 40, the decline in performance is pretty dramatic. So, a 52-year-old and Musk, by his own admission, doesn't work out at all, let alone train in any martial arts. So who knows? I think Musk probably wouldn't pull through with
No.
this, like, because he lies so much and just
I
says
think I
dumb
think
things
the
all
only
the
thing he
time.
has going for him there is height. Right, he's quite tall, I think.
Height and size, yeah. In
Yeah.
fact, he joked about that. He says, I have a move called the walrus, which just like flops on someone, he says. Which is true. That's actually, if you back in the day with UFC, like when they didn't have weight classes, like that's sometimes that would happen. Sometimes you would even see fights between people in the same weight class, and they would just do that. They would just get on top of the dude. If you're defending your belt for like the 5th time, you don't take chances. So you'll just like lay on top of the person so they can't hit you at all and win the fight that way. And it's true, you defended your belt, but everybody hates you because
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
such like a terrible fight. But okay, here's what I hope happens. It's a fight to the death. One of them dies,
Oh my
and then
God.
the reward for winning is you also die.
Oh, so yeah, okay.
That's the best outcome. Nothing personal. I think they're probably nice human beings, but I honestly just don't care at all about this. I think if this goes through, this will be the dumbest thing. This is right up there with the idiocracy.
It won't go through.
Like, yeah. And if it does, I mean, I think Zuckerberg's going to just destroy him. I'm curious about this week's recording, by the way. I'm looking at my recording. For some reason, everything is pretty loud. So,
Oh. Hopefully it's
well,
okay.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But thing of the week, real quickly, I finally got to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. As a fan of that series, I was very happy with it. I don't understand some of the professional reviews on this one. It was weird. They were like, "Oh, it was too much." It was perfect for me. I loved everything about it. I thought the way they tied everything up was great. The way it ends, we know it's the last Guardians movie, so how they got there and how they do that was, I was really happy with the way it ends. The action was great. The story was adorable. I love Cosmo the dog and the whole bad dog thing. I kept laughing at. Like, I just thought the special effects were fun. It was imaginative. I liked the main baddie in there, the High Evolutionary. I thought he was great. I don't know, very happy with it. I don't say that a lot about Marvel movies, but this one was actually. But I love James Gunn. I think James Gunn's a phenomenal director because he brings heart to everything he does. Like every character he makes, like you actually kind of feel for, and that's such a hard thing to do. But all his movies have an emotional level to them that are just really kind of deep, and I don't know, that was great. Did you ever get to see that one, Jack?
Oh, sorry, my mic was muted. I said no. No, I didn't.
You should go see that one.
Yeah.
Well, did you? Oh, I did get to see the first episode of Black Mirror, season 6, with the Joan is awful. Is that what it
Yeah.
was?
Yeah.
That
Did you
was
like
pretty
it?
funny.
Yeah, I thought it was
Yeah, that
good.
was like pretty meta at the end there. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Um,
right?
there's actually a tool. If you go to streamberry.com, they bought the site, and like you can upload a photo of yourself and create your own like
Oh,
Daniel's
really?
awful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. Yeah, I'll send. I did mine. I'll send you what it looks like. But that's the only one I've watched so far. But yeah, it was. That was great. Selma Hayek was fantastic in that too. She
She
was
was,
so
yeah.
friggin' funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great episode. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah.
what about you? You got a thing of the week?
I don't think I do this week. I've not had a chance to watch anything all week, so no, sadly not for me. Halo Infinite Season 4 is out, and you can now develop a career rank, which is shocking that it took them this
Career
long
rank.
to bring to the game. But it's finally there now, so hooray.
Is it true that in the game you have to set up a LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, you have to start applying for jobs in the Spartan program. Yeah, yeah, it's all
You
there.
put in your keywords and your history.
Yeah,
That would be a very Microsoft thing to do, actually.
it would.
We didn't talk about gaming this week because there was a lot of stuff on gaming, but maybe we'll talk a little. Well, we won't be here next week, so
Right.
here's a warning, by the way. We won't be here next week. So hopefully nothing major will happen. If so, Zach can do a solo podcast, or we can bring someone else on. Maybe Jez will be around, and we can do that. But we'll see what happens. Apparently, I'm just looking at our Slack chat. Apparently, everyone in our company is sick this week. We're not feeling well. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully we all recovered. The gaming team did an incredible job in the last couple of days on covering everything. There's been some news around the FTC stupid Xbox thing, which is just again proving how little the FTC knows about uh, what's going on there with Xbox and gaming. So we'll touch upon that later. Other than that, we'll do a quick Q&A with the audience. Follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, RUBINO, and follow Zach as ZACBOWDEN. We do record this every Friday live, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel. So go check out the video broadcast there. And as always, we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Sweet. Yeah. Make sure you upload the right one this time, Dan.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, now's the time to post it into the chat. We'll hang around for a few minutes and do our best to give it an answer. What can Microsoft do to prevent serious hacks like Outlook and OneDrive in the future? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Was there a hack recently that I missed? Yeah, I don't know. Does Microsoft new backup feature for Windows support backing up your PC to external hard drives as well as OneDrive? No, it doesn't. Sadly, it's a cloud backup tool, so it only backs up to OneDrive. Zach, you mentioned that the macOS update process is terrible. Can you give more details on it, like which part that you don't like? I'm curious because I haven't used macOS for a long while. It's just slow. Now, to give Apple credit, I haven't used an M1 or an M-based MacBook yet in regards to doing updates, so maybe it's a lot faster now. But things like estimated time remaining on a Mac is hilariously inaccurate. Oftentimes, I'll see when doing an update, it'd be like estimated time remaining 4 hours. So 4 hours? Are you kidding me? It's not 4 hours, but it's certainly longer than it needs to be. Like, why is it taking so long? But yes, macOS updates are just as inconvenient as Windows updates. Windows gets a lot of flack for Windows update, but honestly, I think Windows updates are a lot less a pain in the backside than macOS updates are, only because they're quicker. Windows updates, they download in the background, they install in the background, and then you do a reboot, and it takes less than a couple minutes to get back to running. Whereas a macOS update the process is a lot longer than that. I have a question for you, Dan. Do you have Zach's Twitter handle spelled by ear, or do you think how to spell it every time?
No, I know it.
Yeah.
It's just I'm terrible at I don't do well when people spell things to me auditorially and I have to like do it in my head. My brain doesn't work like that. Like I'm just, and same thing with repeating out spelling stuff. I find like I would be basically awful at a spelling bee. I don't visualize words like that. My brain just works differently. I'm also a very holistic visual person. And in terms of, that's why I'm actually good as an editor in chief. I'm very good at holistic strategies on running the site and the big picture. I'm not good at like details. Although I'm good at editing articles, I guess, and finding details to pick on. But like Zach is more, like we talked about this before with the UI stuff. Like Zach will notice every little inconsistency. To me, doesn't even phase me. So it's just we all have like different abilities for processing, and I just have weird limitations.
Oh, I almost deleted my audio recording. That would have been hilarious. Right, chat. Are you excited for Gallium? Yeah, why not?
What's Gallium?
That's just the next platform base for Windows builds.
Oh,
currently,
right.
They're not testing it. It's internal only right now, but they must be getting ready to start testing it soon. Is Core PC going to replace Windows Core OS everywhere possible, or it's just going to be limited to certain cases? Also, do you think that Microsoft would have any incentives to ship Xbox OS with Core PC? I don't know. This is an excellent question. I mean, to me, based on how Microsoft sort of describes Core PC, it does seem to be just like a new version of Windows Core OS. So I guess maybe you think of it more as Windows Core OS will be updated. And Windows Core OS devices could easily be updated as Core PC devices because to my knowledge, there's no real reason why that couldn't happen from a technical perspective. At that point, it would just be a rebrand more than anything for the devices that are already Windows Core shipping, like HoloLens and Xbox. They would be updated to Core PC. But from a technical perspective, not much changes for them. So, how are you liking your all-in-one? I love it. I think it's great. No complaints. I do wish it's going to be a while for me to say. I do wish the screen was bigger. But I mean,
well, because
I mean
it's the height. Right?
Yeah, I want it to be taller. I don't mind the width. I think it's width great, but I would like it to be just a bit taller in regards to height. Yeah, because right now it's a very it's very narrow and long, which is fine. That's what ultra wides are. But I just wish it was taller. Is the smaller Surface Pro not happening? Not this year, no. Surface Pro 10, as I mentioned, has been delayed, and the smaller Surface Pro, to my knowledge, was supposed to ship with the next Surface Pro. So if the Surface Pro 10 has been delayed, then the smaller Surface Pro has also been delayed. So we likely won't see a new Surface Pro until at the earliest spring next year, but I think probably next fall will be more likely when we see the next Surface Pro, especially if they want to time it with Windows 12. Have you tried GeForce Now? I have not tried GeForce Now.
I have, not recently. I gotta try it again. For some reason, like it's supposed to be better than everything else, simply because it's powered by like GeForce RTX 4080s, I believe. Well, if you go to the Ultimate, right? I do have an Ultimate account with them, which means you can play like Cyberpunk, like at like high settings and stuff like that, and stream it with all the cool lighting effects. So it's a better thing. But the interface has always been a little for me. But then again, I did try playing Destiny 2 on it, and it was pretty useful. I gotta try it again, basically. But it's a pretty good service. Like I said, technically it's better than Xbox. It's just that Xbox lumps everything together with their Game Pass, so you can download games or you can stream them, and it's just like it's a little bit more robust. What's nice about GeForce though is you can link it to your other accounts, which is really the way to make it work, which is kind of cool. That makes it way more interesting. If you have other like Steam and Epic and stuff like that, I think you can link them all. So
I've been a bit out of the loop of insider builds lately, like in the past year. So compared to the latest regular release, do we have any features worth noting that I'm missing from the Canary channel? I would usually run, not from Canary, but from the dev channel. Sure, yeah. There's a number of features they're testing currently, which will be shipping as the 23H2 release. You know, Windows Copilots will be coming hopefully next week to that channel, which is the new AI assistant. There's also an updated modern file explorer that they're working on, which is in testing now. A new Windows backup tool. A bunch of just quality life improvements to things like the system tray, being able to turn off the date and time if you wanted to. And I think there's still more to come as well. Dynamic lighting is another one. If you have any RGB peripherals, you can customize those now directly through Windows settings. There's a lot of nice stuff that they're working on. Nothing groundbreaking, I don't think, but lots of nice quality of life stuff.
one thing I do not like about GeForce Now is they do that thing where if you don't log into your account for like a week or two, you log in and then they send you an email, and you have to click the link and open it. It's kind of a pain if you're on, and the reason I mentioned that it's like if you're on a handheld device, you probably haven't set up email on it yet because you're not going to probably use email on it very often. So then you have to go set up email. And even when I use Gmail, I use 2FA, and then it's a process all of a sudden just to verify my account. It's kind of annoying versus just Steam's authentication system's the best, right? Because you just scan, you have the app on your Android phone, and then you just which are already logged in, and you just scan the QR label, and then it logs you in. Like that's the way it should be done. And basically, we got to get away from all this password and email stuff. It's really annoying.
No single screen Android phone from Microsoft to fill the gap between Duo 2 and the upcoming foldable device. To my knowledge, no. That was a possibility, but no, I feel like I would have heard more about it by now if that was going to be a thing. Yeah, no single screen phone this year. Zach, do you think Microsoft has lost their way with the Surface line? This is an interesting question. I certainly do feel that Surface has become a lot more boring recently. They've really not been innovating much. There's not been any new exciting form factors or different takes on what a PC could be. You know, the Duo 2 or the Duo itself was the last sort of form factor thing that they did that was really different, pushing the boat out. Before that, it would have been the Surface Neo, which they have still not shipped and likely never will at this point. But, you know, that 2019 event where they announced the Neo and the Duo was very... They've still not topped that event, personally. I don't think... Maybe the October 2021 event comes a bit close, but I don't think it's... I think the October event's still, like, above that quite significantly. Somebody was asking earlier, you know, do you reckon they'll tease the Duo 3 at the event this fall? Absolutely not. They were burnt big time. By teasing or pre-announcing a device, that being the Surface Neo. So you will never see Microsoft announce a new Surface ahead of time ever again. That is a big no-no from that team now. So, yeah.
Someone probably made Panos do it, and he's like, I hate you for making me do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and watch that event and you listen to what Panos is saying, he even says on stage, like, he really doesn't know, or he doesn't want to do this. He doesn't know how to talk about this device yet because it's not ready. So yeah, I don't know what convinced them to start talking about that so early. I guess at the time it was the developer push that they were going for, right? Because it was dual screen, it was a new platform, they needed developers on board. But yeah, there's so many other ways they could have done that without announcing hardware. I don't know.
It's so funny how both devices now are just kind of like Neo never launched and Duo did launch twice and still just like
Yeah, Microsoft. Yeah,
bonkers.
it's actually genuinely really sad because it is such a unique vision on what PCs and phones can be. But for some reason, Microsoft is no longer interested in being unique. They just want to be mainstream. It's sad. Do you think Windows and ARM is the future for Microsoft slash Windows? We've talked about this before. Windows and ARM is a future alongside Intel and AMD. ARM is not going away. Intel isn't going away, and AMD isn't going away. They will coexist as vendors for Windows. Vendors is probably not the correct term, but you get what I mean. They will all be chips that you can find in Windows PCs. Um, that's how it will be. There won't be a winner, if that's what you're asking. That Microsoft won't choose one to be the sole exclusive partner for chip support on Windows. They will all continue to exist and build products and compete with each other. Are there any plans to make the sidebar in the Windows File Explorer more modern? I'd love to see a collapsible hamburger menu with blur for that section instead of the boring line we have currently. So I think it is getting updated. I think it's supposed to be updated alongside the home and folder views, which, to my knowledge, are in testing now, or at least the home views in testing. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm not too sure what that will entail. I don't know if you'll be able to collapse it with like a hamburger menu and stuff, but we'll see. All right, final call for questions. Then it is indeed time to head off. I've got USB.
Did you do the Windows on ARM future question?
Yes, I did.
Okay, sorry. I was connecting up my Ubisoft account to my GeForce Now. We make a deep review of the Surface Go 4. If it's really interesting, sure. If not, I'll have someone else do a review of it. We have a better reviews team set up this year than any other year previously. So
yeah, I'm very excited for the Go 4. That's been the device I've been waiting for, and ARM Go has been basically what I've been asking for since 2018. So
fingers crossed. I don't know about that 7C though, but we'll see.
So going back to a single screen phone was not such a big deal in your experience, both Zach and Dan. So for me, it's been a nightmare. It's horrible. I'll tell you that now. I don't like how cramped everything feels. I think that's also in part to do with the fact that the Duo screens are just wider anyway. So even if you're using it in a single screen mode, you just see more because there's more room for text to sort of span out in a sentence and stuff. Whereas on a phone like this, it's just like everything. It's just like really cramped together. Plus the fact that you don't have a second screen to have two things running side by side. Yeah, it just feels really cramped. I have to like. It's happened multiple times now where I'm having to add up in one app and I'm using the calculator in the other app. And I know Samsung does this thing where you can split things side by side, but because it's such a manual process, I don't use it. I just swipe up to go home, tap on the calculator, type my number, swipe up to go home, tap back into the app I was in before to see the other number I need to add together. It's just a nightmare. And the Duo would be so much better at stuff like that. And yeah, I genuinely miss it, but I'm not using a phone Microsoft isn't supporting. I'm just not. I won't do that.
It hasn't been as bad for me, but I mean, ideally, if I had my pick right now, yeah, I'd have like a Surface Duo 3 with a camera that's doesn't need to be a Pixel 7 level. Well, I'll take a Pixel 5 level, like with a decent
Yeah.
camera on it, and just that, some better hardware, I would be very happy with if I could. But I've been using Pixel 7 mostly just because of its simplicity. I like Google's changes, and because of the camera, it's just been so good. I will say I've been tempted by the new Razer flip phone. That's been with the full screen,
The
outer
Motorola.
screen is really tempting. I think I
Yeah.
would actually use that a lot, especially I love the idea of like a text message comes in, you just can respond right there and just you can do a lot from, you know, Mr. Mobile, aka Michael Fisher, did a whole video review of it. Go check it out. But he makes the argument that like, yeah, you don't even need to open the phone half the time. I think that's really tempting. Like I've been tempted to get that. Just the trade-ins haven't been as great as I wanted. Sarah was yeah, she was asking about, but Dan, Game Pass is coming to GeForce. Why I ask your thoughts? Yeah, so that was announced. Yeah, so Game Pass will be. So I was just linking up my GeForce Now. GeForce Now, you can link up to Ubisoft, Epic Games, and Steam. And now Game Pass is going to come to it. So if you don't do you could do the cloud stuff through them. So basically, GeForce Now has a better streaming system, I would say, than Xbox does. Like I said, because it's powered by 4080, so you can juice up those the graphics much higher and still get that same stream. I think it's a great idea, of course. Which one I would use more? I don't know. They're both pretty good. I got to use GeForce Now a little bit more, to be honest. I haven't played with it as much as I should. Uh, but I like how you can just kind of link your accounts. Like being able to link Steam is kind of cool to it. Um, yeah, it's that choice between cloud gaming and localized gaming. But I think it's good.
All right. With that, I think it is time to head off. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We won't be back next Friday, but we'll be back the week after. Follow us on Twitter. We keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.